Hey, thank you everyone for coming out to this first ever non-commissioned officer corner, and for us to be able to discuss the non-commissioned officer rule in the Indo-Pacific. Obviously no pressure, but appreciate everyone coming out today. So I'm Sean Carnes. I am the 1st Corps Command Sergeant Major. 1st Corps is the operational headquarters in the Indo-Pacific. As the operational headquarters in the Indo-Pacific, we have 3 focus areas that serve to strengthen our profession with us, our joint force, and also our multinational partners. 1, relationships. So we leverage our state partnership programs, we leverage the 5th SFAB, and also we leverage 1st Special Forces Group. Because some of these organizations have 20 to 30 years of relationships with our multinational partners. And we would be remiss if we didn't use those relationships and build off those relationships. We want to build relationships that are professional. We want to build relationships that are personal. Our professional relationships, we want to get to know their Army. We want to get to know how their NCO and officers work together. We want to know how their staff NCOs work on their staffs. Personally, we've got to break down the barriers. We got to break down the superiority, because it's about peer-to-peer and us working together, getting to understand their culture, getting to understand them as people outside of the uniform, so we can build the team of teams and that winning attitude. Number 2, education and leader development. We want to understand the institutional development, the operational development, to include the self-development. So then that will help us fill the gaps and develop action plans for subject matter exchanges. Number 3, readiness and war fighting. We assess our readiness and our war fighting as a team of teams at JPMRC, the Joint Pacific Multinational Readiness Center, and also Operation Pathways. Through these 3 focus areas, this is a guide for our NCOs, our leaders, to be able to interact with our multinational partners and our joint partners. And then we also develop action plans through these 3 focus areas for continuous and persistence engagement. Thank you very much. Sergeant Major Rob Bulmer.
All right. Good morning to everybody. I am Rob Bulmer, the 8th Army Sergeant Major stationed at Camp Humphreys, Korea. 8th Army is the senior Army element for all Army forces in Korea. So real quick, I'm just going to go over some uniqueness about the fact that we are stationed in Korea. We live with our partners. So the 8th Army arrived in Korea in 1950, and we have never left. We've had a constant presence on the peninsula of Korea for 73 years. So when you talk about interoperability and you talk about the ability to build partners and teams, we've had the great opportunity to do that because of our long-standing relationship and our presence in Korea. So I will tell you, when you speak about the human element of interoperability, we have the biggest thing I think we have in common is we all have a shared threat in Korea. We know who the threat is. They're a threat to us, they're a threat to the Koreans, and they're a threat to other partner nations in the immediate area. So that alone allows us to be on the same sheet of music in terms of why we're there and what our mission is. So that helps a lot. Another thing that helps a lot is that we've been together for 73 years, so we understand each other's cultures. We do a lot of things in terms of trying to better understand who we are as people. And being there and seeing us from day to day and interop with each other and interact, we understand one another's culture, we understand what makes us tick, and that helps build relationships. Another thing I will tell you that helped a lot in Korea in terms of interoperability is when you talk about the second element, when you talk about the technical piece, if you were to look at Korea's forces in their makeup, they have very similar equipment to what we do in the United States. Some of it's made by the United States and others not, but in terms of interoperability and being able to talk to one another and communicate and integrate, their equipment being similar to ours helps that. We also have a shared network in Korea that we operate off, Centrix K. We operate on that both in exercise, real time, and in day-to-day operations. So if you start looking at challenges that some of these folks will talk about, the role of the non-commissioned officer in the Indo-Pacific, we don't have a lot of the challenges when it comes to interoperability because we are actually integrated. And then you go to the third one, the procedural piece of interoperability. We do major exercises twice a year in Korea. Those exercises are geared towards our wartime mission. We do them as a combined force, and we are together on everything that we do. If you look at our 2nd Infantry Division, is also known as the ROC U.S. Combined Division. We have active, participants from the ROC Army on our staff in 2ID. One of our DCGs in 8th Army is a ROC General Officer, same thing in 2ID. So that integration of our procedures and how we operate is another advantage for what we're doing there in Korea. Now, I will tell you also, it's a little different than an exercise where you go out and you interact with a partner for 2 weeks and then you leave. We have that constant presence. But constant presence also means our NCOs have to be doing the right thing at all times. We do a lot of joint training. So just if you look at the slide here, I'll tell you some of the things that we do. I would not say we're interoperable, I said we're integrated. So when we do ESB3 training, okay, we do that as as the Koreans are training and testing just like we do to the same standards we do. We have a NCO Academy exchange program. So we have ROC U.S. soldiers training our non-commissioned officers, and we send a non-commissioned officer or two down permanently to the Korean non-commissioned officer academy, and they instruct there. We also have what we call a KTA, the AUSA Training Academy, where we have U.S. soldiers and ROC soldiers training KATUSAs, that's the Korean augmentation to the United States Army, to serve in the U.S. Army for a period of 18 months. So I guess the point of the whole thing I will tell about the role of the NCO in Korea is that we have advantages in terms of being together for a long period of time. But there's also the challenge of doing the right thing at all times because you're constantly being watched. And if we implement something in our Army or our NCOs tend to do something in our Army, generally speaking, the Koreans will adapt it. So, when they go out the joint training exercises with us, if you look on here, we do a combined wet gap crossing, which is a really good exercise. They do it about twice a year. But there's Korean bridges that hook up to American bridges. And you can notice that when we do that, it's led by normally a staff sergeant or a sergeant running the bridging operation. And the Koreans, at times, they'll start off with a lieutenant colonel, a sergeant, a major, and high-ranking people out there. But by the time the exercise ends 2 or 3 days and they've done 3 or 4 reps, they've now modeled what we did, and they have young non-commissioned officers leading small teams like we do. So again, we are at an advantage when it comes to working with our partners, but I will tell you it's a never-ending thing that we got to continue to do in order to maintain that constant presence and commitment to us. Because we're being watched every day, we're going to fight together, and they know that. So if we adapt something, they're going to adapt it as well. So pending any questions, that's all I have for you. Thanks.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is First Sergeant Tim Brogan. I'm with the 2nd Battalion, 5th Security Forces Assistance Brigade. I'm going to talk about one of my unique opportunities to employ with the brigade during Force Package 23-1 to Thailand. The sergeants major before me talked about presence with our partners and our allies. Something that SFAB does is offer that persistent presence. One of the unique problem sets we had specific to my force package was we had a lot of desires from our partners in Thailand, but not many personnel. A 12-man advisor team in multiple locations. For example, the 112th Stryker Regiment was one of our primary partners, along with their sister regiment, the 111th. 2 regiments in the same division, but wanted different training opportunities with us. For example, 112th, they wanted MDMP, striker sustainment, things like that. That's what they wanted to concentrate on at the regimental level. Whereas at the 111th, you can see with the young staff sergeant there, skill level 1 training, marksmanship, things like that. And then additionally, we were also in the institutional domains with the RTA Military Academy, where we had 3 advisors, NCOs, training a Sandhurst competition team that eventually went to the Sandhurst competition at West Point. And then we also had 3 advisors at the NCO Academy, and we see that picture there, that's myself plus a staff sergeant and a sergeant first class discussing activities, knowledge exchange, and things like that with our NCO Academy there. And the person standing or sitting at the front of that desk there is the general officer. So the role of the NCO in the Indo-Pacific arguably is being spearheaded by advisors, and we have that presence all the time there, and we're getting after it with them. Some of the important things that we like to get after with them, obviously, is building that rapport with them and maintaining it over time, and maintaining that presence with them, because if we're not there, then somebody else is. That's all I have, but if you're interested in SVAB, I have some of my leadership sitting here in the front row. You see the advisor patch or the brown beret, please come talk to us. We're always hiring. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, leaders. My name is Staff Sergeant Madison Wright, and I operate as a 35 Fox All-Source Intelligence Analyst with the 3rd Multi-Domain Task Force, located in USARPAC, Hawaii, where we just recently celebrated our 1-year anniversary from our activation. Multi-domain operations integrates land, air, sea, space, and cyberspace capabilities for a competitive edge, and so we can achieve strategic objectives in new ways. In the Indo-Pacific, NCOs must be able to adapt and be culturally aware when working in such a culturally diverse and vast landscape. If you can see here on the left, we have our activation ceremony in Pacific Century 2023. This is when we went to our joint partners here in the USARPAC location. We worked with some of our joint partners so that we could really get after with our new technology and cutting-edge strategic abilities that we are just putting to practice these days. The 3rd MDTF is a brand new unit, and we are striving for a culture of innovation and to drive NCO empowerment. We are doing this by using cutting-edge technology and never-before-used platforms and experimentation so that we can get after the cross-training of our strategically operable cross-domain teams, and we can lead from the front and do what NCOs are meant to be doing. We are leading by example while staying strategically and culturally aware of our partners and our allied forces. So this is setting us up so we can deliver messages and share information and what we're learning in real time so that we can continue moving forward and making progress in the ever-changing Indo-Pacific region. Thank you.
Aloha, everybody. How's everybody doing today? All right. My name is Master Sergeant Kennedy, representing ATSC and medical logistician by trade. I'm just going to talk about what we do as far as responsibilities in the theater, and then I'll just go straight to questions, all right? We have 4 responsibilities in the ATSC, which is theater opening, theater distribution, sustainment, and then theater closing. Don't have too much time, so I'm not going to get into the meat and potatoes of it. So what I will say is that as the NCO role as a medical logistician and a sustainer at ATSC has been very rewarding for me. The most rewarding thing is working with our allies. If you can see in my picture right here, working with the Japanese forces, had a good time as far as just doing sustainer things, transportation, things of that nature. Also right here, transportation as far as, getting vehicles and equipment on the plane, C-130, things of that nature. But other than that, one of the most rewarding things too as well, I can say as a sustainer in ATSC, is the ability to plan as well. Usually when you hear a planner, you hear nothing but officers planning, right? NCOs typically do the execution. However, NCOs in 8th Theater Sustainment Command, we have the ability to, or should I say the opportunity, to plan and execute, start to finish. So for me, I can tell you that that's been one of the most rewarding things being in the ATSC, and hopefully we can continue that tradition as far as, being planners and spearheading it from the front. That's all I have. If you got any more questions.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sergeant First Class Morales. I'm a 196th Infantry Brigade, JPMRC out of Fort Shafter, Hawaii. I've been in JPMRC since January, so I'm still relatively new, but the experiences and the opportunities I've had in this organization has been tremendous, which allows me to be here speaking with you today. JPMRC is the newly recognized CTC for the Army. If you haven't heard about it yet, you're going to hear about it. We're growing tremendously. We are really impacting the Army on a global scale, right? See here, I was just in Australia with Talisman Sabre 23 as an OC, partnering with their Army's OCs, trying to helping them, coaching them, improving our multinational partnership as well as them helping us. So the unique thing about that was I was embedded in an infantry unit of Australians, right? But they were also had detachments. They had a squad full from Fiji, a squad full from New Zealand, and a squad from the French Legion. So it's just one of those unique things that we're able to do at JPMRC. As well as a lot of people don't really recognize that Alaska falls under that, right? So we fight in the Arctic, out in the cold. We're subject matter experts on how to do that, as well as the complete opposite side of the spectrum is fighting in the jungle warfare there in Hawaii. So this unit, like I said, tremendous opportunities. We're growing. We're able to really reach out on a multinational level and build our partner relationships, and it's just been a tremendous opportunity. Like I said, we are growing, so officers, senior NCOs, check that marketplace. We do open forums, trying to interview for us, and yeah, so appreciate it. This time, all the rest of the panel members are going to come up, open it up to any questions you guys might have. Thank you.
All right, open to some questions. Come on up here, all NCOs. What questions we have from the audience?
Hi, Christopher Woody from Business Insider. Thank you for all your presentations. A lot of U.S. and Ukrainian officials have pointed to the Ukrainian NCO Corps as a key element of their success, especially in the first few weeks of the war when they needed to be flexible and adaptable. I wanted to ask if your multinational partners, have they made the same observations, and if so, how has that affected what they're asking from you in terms of training and engagement and other interactions?
Yeah, so most of them are looking at that, right? They see the importance of NCO Corps, but then also it's just not the importance of the NCO Corps, because it's taken us a lot of years to get to where we're at, right? It wasn't just like yesterday we became this professional non-commissioned officer corps. But then we also got empowered from our officer corps, right? To empower us to be the non-commissioned officer corps we have. Through our education, we earned the trust to be the NCO Corps we are. So yes, our multinational partners do see what's going on in Ukraine. They do understand the importance of the non-commissioned officer corps, and that's the importance of our subject matter exchanges. That's the importance of JPMRC. That's the importance of operational pathways, so we can continue to help them develop their non-commissioned officer corps. And I'll give you an example, as one of the NCOs talked about Thailand. So while we were over in Thailand, we looked at their non-commissioned officer corps in their education system. And then we invited a delegation of them to come over to JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington, to check out our non-commissioned officer academy. And then what we're going to do at the first of the year is we're going to take some of our non-commissioned officer academy instructors and commandant. We're going to go to Thailand, do an assessment, and then we're going to put an action into place. Because I think that's important. You know, we can all talk, but we got to put action into place. So we'll put action on the calendar of how we can help each other develop our non-commissioned officer academy to help their non-commissioned officers, but it also helps us as non-commissioned officers understand joint, understand dealing with multinational partners.
Yeah, I think just to jump on that a little bit is they do see the value, but what they also understand, it's hard to get there. It takes, like Sergeant Major Carnes said, it's taken us 200 some years to really get our NCOs to where they're at. So it's not something you can just buy off the shelf and implement. And when you start to do it at the nascent level, you're going to have some struggles. So I think part of the problem is you got to sort of let them know they're going to have some issues with that to start off with, because it takes years of developing and trust to have an effective non-commissioned officer corps. So I think the big thing that we can do as partners is let them know that any progress is progress, and don't try to just dump the program if it doesn't work out, in the first year or two of establishment, because it takes a long time to develop that operation where NCOs are leading small units and teams and officers are comfortable with that. So it takes some time to get there.
Hey teammates. So since the majority of your organizations maybe overseas or OCONUS, I was just wondering, is there any feedback when it comes to non-commissioned officers being able to attend their required PME? And how, for those of us who serve as the proponents of our branches, how we could possibly help you ensure to do so, especially considering places like Korea, where the majority of our soldiers are on a 12-month assignment.
So, Sergeant Major, prime example, I have a soldier right now he is my commo advisor for my battalion, NCOIC of the shop. And I'll be on a plane shortly after leaving here to go to JPMRC for a training exercise. We found out 2 weeks ago he was added into SLC. There was no question he was going there. So yeah, there are the sacrifices that we have for that, and similar to what the Sergeant Major was saying this morning, that has to come first. So we're getting after it from the NCOES side, especially in the SFABs, where we're already a little undermanned as we speak right now, but it's a priority that we give to ensure that they continue to develop.
I think PME is not really a challenge, because that system set up, the way that's ran is pretty good. What I will tell you is the thing that we like to have assistance on is MTTs to come over and help train on ASI producing requirements and SQI producing requirements, because in many cases you come to Korea for a year and the slot that you come to requires you to have a certain SQI or ASI, and if I send you back to school for whatever time to do that and you come back, it loses the amount of time I have you on the peninsula. So either being able to do those schools before they come over, or then do a mass MTT on the peninsula is helpful for us in terms of getting in those type of schools.
So, Major, I'd say too, as from the JPMRC side in Hawaii, it's not difficult at all for the PMEs or any type of professional development that each soldier seeks on their own. We do have our major training exercises that we're all hands on deck. But other than that, our command team from the top obviously encourages and gives us the opportunity to get as many different schooling as we can, so we don't have that issue at all.
Sergeant Major, I would also bring up a point of, you'd mentioned being isolated either in the Pacific or overseas. This is when, family members that, if we have soldiers that have families that might not be close to other family. So that's when they want to go to school, they need to go to school, they want to get after it and get taught. But they might be a little bit nervous about leaving their family, and that's when the NCO Corps is so important. I went to school, back in March when I was just moving to Hawaii, and I had NCOs that were brand new to my unit that I had just met that were reaching out to me, seeing if they could do anything for my family. Do we need anything? And that's what's so important too, is doing the job that we need to do, getting the instruction, and getting the things that we need to learn, but having that security within our NCO Corps and the people to the left and right of us.
And I'll throw an aside from the multinational partners. So we have multinational partners that go to our BLC. I mean, specifically, in Korea, we have the Koreans that attend our BLC over there, okay? So it's very important to understand we also have multinational partners that go to our BLCs in our NCOES system, just like Sergeant Major Academy. We have a lot of our multinational partners here that has attended the Sergeant Major Academy. So we're working to do a little bit more of that at other non-commissioned officer academies, but I just wanted to throw that plug in there for our multinational partners.
Is it on? Hey, good morning, panel. Thank you for your time. One of the key themes that I think everyone touched on was knowledge sharing. So for those who have attended either the partner force leadership academies or vice versa, has you noticed anything from the partner forces, such as leadership techniques, capabilities, anything like that you think would be a positive addition to our forces?
Great question. I can tell you right now, with my time at the RTA NCO Academy, we had a knowledge exchange. We had 50 instructors there and 3 advisors. And they were asking a lot of the same questions that we would ask our small group leaders in NCOES. They want to share with us, and a lot of it is just understanding their doctrine and our doctrine and how to integrate it. And a lot of it is similar, and a lot of the doctrine that the RTA uses is from us as well. And I think the biggest disconnect there would be their interpretation of it, so it's a bad translation, which we know how our doctrine is, could be somewhat difficult to understand. So, but having that presence with them and that interaction with them so they can be like, I don't understand this. Can you break it down in layman terms for me? And we're able to do that. So it's all about, one, creating that rapport with them so they trust you enough to ask you those questions, because we're talking about in the Indo-Pacific, they're, very proud. And it could be difficult for them to admit when they don't understand, or if they were wrong, or they don't have knowledge on something.
And I'll just go back to part of our 3 focus areas, relationships. Okay, you've got to build them relationships, but it's just not building the relationship. You've got to get that barrier down. And that's where that personal relationship comes in to the situation, getting to know their culture, what they're like, right? What they're like as a person outside of the military uniform, because that's when they're going to start being curious and asking you questions. So developing that relationship with them is going to help us understand what they want, because then they're going to come ask for it. It's not about superiority, it's about peer-to-peer and understanding that. So developing that relationship, part of our focus areas for First Corps. So they do ask quite a bit. Obviously with the NCO Academy with Thailand, right? Very important. And then with Sergeant Major Sato, or GCC Sergeant Major over at Japan. As we went around together during one of the exercises, and we seen their staff NCOs just weren't as involved as our staff NCOs, right? And so we're developing a plan to get a battle staff course over there to help their NCOs understand what it means to be a staff NCO. Because, they're all about being leadership, right? But now we have to teach them, just like we all learn about being staff NCOs. So we're working that in the future.
Yeah, just to jump on that particular scenario there, I think another value added for us in the U.S. Army is bringing our officers with us as well, because our officers will influence their officers in terms of the value of the non-commissioned officer. So there are sometimes hesitant, and some of his observations may have been because the staff NCO was hesitant to do something on the staff because the officer probably wasn't empowered that particular NCO to do it. So the officers help us in that role as well to sort of educate their officers on the value of the NCO.
Sergeant Major Carnes, Sergeant Major Gandy, good to see you. Actually, Sergeant Major just hit on that. I think I was going to ask, what challenges do you see with the officers when you're trying to change the culture of how our partners see their NCO Corps? And are we using our officers to leverage changing that culture? Because it's going to take time. So how are we doing that?
Well, I will tell you from a Korea perspective, they see it every day, and the officers are integrated with our officers, so it's not much of a challenge. But I will tell you, when I've gone out to other partners and talked to them, the feedback that I get from my officers is, hey, I had to talk to them about using his NCOs. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It takes years to build that trust and to build a quality non-commissioned officer that other countries' officers will be used to letting them do it. And you got to think, these countries have had armies for quite a while, and they've been operating a certain way. So to change how they operate is a little difficult. So I just think, yes, the officers help us in that role. And the more they say it and the more they hear it from our officers on how important we are, I think the more willing they'll be allowed to empower their NCOs.
To do the first sergeant thing and caveat off what the sergeant major said, yes, it's important. It is a bit of a challenge. However, a lot of what I experience with RTA officers, even at general officer level, is they understand how important an NCO Corps is. Many of them have been trained and educated in the United States. They speak very good English. You can communicate easily with them, and they will have personal conversations with you about how they can get after it and what they want to do to improve their NCO Corps. And I think if we continue to do what the Sergeant Major were talking about with the exchange program, to get more NCOs over there and more officers into our schools, and we do the same thing, then that will help bridge that gap.
And yeah, so there is quite a bit out there as officer-centric militaries, and how do we overcome some of that, right? So first thing is me and the CG being together as we go out and do stuff, right? So they see that the commanding general empowers me as a non-commissioned officer, one, right? Number two thing is also, going out on different times at different locations. That's also showing that military that the CG empowers me to go out and take the message he has out to the force and the priorities. So that's two ways. And then the third way is when we're together and we're talking to that senior non-commissioned officer and that commanding general or that commander, right? That he also recognizes me and says, Sergeant Major, do you have anything to say? And I'm always prepared to say something, because that's important, because it's showing that foreign or the multinational partners that, hey, that CG entrusts me to speak, and I'm also speaking to another officer. So them three ways there I see is helping us and helping our multinational partners overcome the officer-centric militaries that they might have.
Sergeants Major, First Sergeant, fellow NCOs, my name is Master Sergeant Sarvine. I work at MRB NCR, so far away from the Indo-Pacific, but I was in both Alaska and Korea. I realized that there is varied terrain over that area. My question is twofold. How do you train to a high degree of proficiency for that varied terrain, as well as how do you hold on to that knowledge given the quick turnover of personnel in that area? Thank you.
So I can speak for the Alaska portion, obviously. At JPMRC, we're actually allowed to go to that Arctic school, learn your Arctic tab, the cold weather leaders course. I'm actually attending that here very shortly. So we go out there, do that training, get the most professional knowledge that we can give as non-commissioned officers, and then go out there and enforce it out there in the field. So it's very demanding, very different, especially for me. I've never been in the Arctic until this last exercise we did. But it's again, they're entrusting us as NCOs to be the most professional version of ourselves. So getting in there, learning the doctrine, and then going to that school to get the actual professional development that we need to help that force.
Yeah, and just from the career perspective, I'll tell you, we live on the peninsula, we train on the peninsula, so there's not a piece of terrain that we haven't operated there, and we rehearse our wartime mission twice a year. So the terrain is not an issue in terms of what we're going to do or how we do it. The turnover is a good question, but I will tell you the beauty about Korea is although the Americans come and go every year or 2 years, the Koreans stay there. And so by the time you come to Korea and you link up with your Korean counterpart, they've done that exercise 10, 15 times. So that's how we sort of make up for our lack of knowledge of the terrain.
Yeah, so that's why we have JPMRC in Hawaii, in Alaska, but it's also exportable. I mean, we just took it out to Australia and trained on, the land down there in Australia. So it's one way trained on the land. But then we also have operational pathways, 31 different exercises in 13 different countries. 25th ID, 11th Airborne, 7th ID, to include the Corps headquarters, and all of our separate neighborhood brigades are involved in some of those exercises on the train in those areas. Now, you said about turnover. So we just turned over 65% in our staff this summer, right? Every summer we turn over 65%. But then we have different programs to be able to get them staff caught back up to where we're at in our exercises, i.e. we're doing Courage Warpath right now. And that is a staff X to get our staff back up to where the other staff was that left with some of the continuity. But guess what? Not all the staff left, you know? So there was still 45% that is there. So they're the continuity to help build the new staff members, i.e. team of teams, bring them on board, so then we don't lose all that continuity and we do not continue to learn or relearn what we learned from our lessons learned from other past exercises or warfighters.
Yeah, I have a quick question about how you are doing that in working with other services. I know on Peninsula and out there in that area, they're all involved. I was wondering if you had a comment on that.
Yeah, so it's very similar with the other services on Korea. So when we do an exercise, it's a joint combined exercise. So USFK is really the exercise proponent for that, United States Forces Korea, which includes all U.S. forces, all services. So it's done the same exact way in terms of our annual exercises, the staff certifications, and the rehearsals is all a joint combined exercise.
Yeah, and I'll just caveat before we run out of time here. So that's exactly the same thing. As I said at the beginning, the three factors that we have is all about the joint force and also our multinational partners. Every exercises that we do in the Indo-Pacific involves joint and multinational partners. Just an example, we're at Talisman Sabre. Our engineers were with the Marines, we're with the Navy, and they did what they call JPOTs, Joint Petroleum Over the Sea. And then our logistics did JLOTs with the Navy, with the Marines, joint logistics over the sea. So yeah, everything that we do is joint or with our multinational partners in every exercise we do. So I just got the 30-second. I appreciate it, and I'll let everyone else have a final comment here real quick, but thank you very much for everyone coming out today for the first ever non-commissioned officer corner, and let us discuss on NCOs in the Pacific. We appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Rob Balmer and the rest of our NCOs.
I have nothing else. Any questions? No? We're good. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the first half of today's Warriors Corner. We will resume presentations at 1440 with AFC, Transforming Command and Control Warfighting Systems. Thank you.